Today on Between the Lines, one of the world's best-selling authors, Jackie Collins. I'm Barry Kibrick. Jackie has sold nearly 500 million books in over 40 different countries. Her 24 best-selling novels have never been out of print. With her latest book, Drop Dead Beautiful, she continues to captivate readers with her tales of the rich, famous, and powerful, exposing all their warts for the world to see.
I'm a writer today because I was a reader when I was 11 years old, and it was...
You do not need to prove your state of happiness to anybody.
Most of these speeches were as much as a month in preparation.
Characters, the heroes in this book, are seekers of truth in a story that involves a lot of corruption.
You don't get a chance to really talk about what's real, and it's the first thing to do.
This is Jackie Collins. What a thrill to have you here. The studio's all abuzz, and this is a real thrill. Thank you very much.
I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I want to start, as I told you a few moments ago, when we discuss these kind of books, I always will get into the philosophical and sociological underpinnings of these characters in a way that our viewers don't even have to read the book to get what we're talking about.
Exactly.
But I thought, give us a little something just so they can get the sense of where this is coming from.
Well, originally Drop Dead Beautiful was called Drop Dead Beautiful, The Continuing Adventures of Lucky Santangelo. And this is a character that I've written about in 5 previous novels. This is my 25th book, but the Santangelo family is so attractive to me that I keep on coming back to them. And so Lucky Santangelo is back. She's this fantastic woman. She's very strong and street smart and savvy. She's owned casinos. She has been married 3 times. She's had a lot of trouble with her father. They were estranged for a long time. Her mother was killed when she was 5 years old. Her brother was killed, and her fiancé was murdered also, and she took revenge on the man who did this, Enzio Bonatti. And so in Drop Dead Beautiful, his illegitimate grandson is back to try and continue the vendetta against Lucky, because everything Lucky does, people are always trying to stop her from doing. But she's a woman who's unstoppable. And in Drop Dead Beautiful, she has a 16-year-old daughter, Max, who's a wild one, just like Lucky was when she was 16. And she has her best friend, Venus, who is kind of like a Madonna, Sharon Stone kind of character. And she is currently seeing a 28-year-old Studley movie star who's 13 years younger than her. And it was very interesting getting into the sort of older, younger kind of relationship. So Lucky is trying to open this hotel build this hotel in Las Vegas called The Keys, and Anthony Bonar is trying to stop her, and various other things are going on throughout the book.
Perfect. So now it's perfect for me to ask this next question
Yes.
as we follow up, and that is, as you said, it's Jackie Collins. It's a novel, but
Yes.
we know some of these characters are based on, lack of a better term, at least images of real people. They
Exactly.
are. And the others that may not be as well known, are they known in your circle? Because I'm asking this for a particular reason.
Yeah,
do you know these type of people?
I do know these type of people. I mean, Anthony Bonar was absolutely based on somebody that I know and had spent time with. And of course, I made him a little badder than he is. This is the worst villain that I've ever written. And in 25 books, that's saying a lot. Anthony is a bad one.
Oh,
But
boy. I mean,
know
bad. He's bad worse than to the bone, because he's evil when you don't even have to be. You know what makes him worse?
What?
It's not so much, I swear, it wasn't his evil as much as his disregard for the regular person. Twice he says, I don't want to give something away, but I know how to do it
Yes.
without giving away.
Yes.
He says something about someone, and he says these words actually, why should they care? She's not a movie star. He's that shallow. He only believes on one level of surface.
Well, I have met many people like that in my life, unfortunately. But I have, lived a life where I've lived in Los Angeles and New York and in Europe. So I know a lot of people, and I've observed a lot of people. And I always like to think of myself as kind of an anthropologist in a way, watching what goes on.
You know, it's funny. I have a mentor friend, Nelson Davis.
I know Nelson.
Well, this is what
I love Nelson.
Well, you know, it's so funny.
Yes.
He said to me, I wasn't even going to bring it up, but he said, there's nobody who observes people better than Jackie Collins. You just
that's
brought that up,
great.
so I brought that
well,
up.
Nelson and I were at a party together this weekend, and he sent you his love.
Oh, well, isn't that well? It's funny because he told me when he knew that you were going to be here.
Yes.
But enough of that. We're too inside already.
Okay.
But here's the words. The bland and beautiful with full lips and a blank expression. I had to ask you, because some of the characters are so shallow like that with that blank expression. You answered that you knew them. But as you know them, are they really that shallow?
Well, some of them are. I mean, I live in Hollywood. I know everybody, okay? I mean, it's such an interesting town because you have to write the cliches. You could not write Hollywood without writing the cliches. And the interesting thing about Hollywood is that the books that are taken seriously about the town are always written by failed screenwriters. Have you noticed that?
Oh, that
and
is
they write this
interesting.
bitter story about, how they were screwed around on their screenplay and how awful it is. But I'm writing from inside the mansion looking out. I know what goes on. My nose is not pressed against the glass. So I do write cliche characters sometimes because they exist. I mean, you have a kind of army of blondes there who all have that long blonde hair and the same fake lips and the same fake boobs, and I can't not write them, you know. They're there for me to write about.
Well, you know, you do write about them, and in this case, though, you do leave us with this impression. I had to write it down.
Yeah.
And it was, you mentioned before about Anthony and his father, and you mentioned Lucky and her father, but you know what? I found it was the relationships with mothers. Because you have Henry here and his mother, you have Max and Lucky. In fact, I even wrote Lucky because of the missing mother, Anthony with the grandmother. The effect of mother and child relationships really play themselves out in the background of this story. They're not really the part of the story that carries the plot through, but it hovers.
Yes, it
back
does.
there.
You're absolutely right. And it's very interesting because my biggest critics are the people who've never read me. And people read me on different levels. Some people, you know, the late Louis Moore called me a raunchy moralist. Some people read me because they think my books are incredibly raunchy. They are not that raunchy. I take people to a certain point and their own imagination takes over, their own fantasy, which is much more interesting for them.
I know I can't believe you said it, because my other note was, these are moral tales.
Yes.
That's what they really are. They're almost
Yes.
like, I'm losing this classic author in ancient Rome who wrote all these little morality tales. I can't think of his name right now, but in a sense, they're almost biblical in proportion because of the type of people they are, and they leave you with not necessarily a positive feeling, but a moral tale.
Exactly. I've always said that if you're single and you're out there, you can do whatever you want to do as long as you don't hurt the animals and the children. However, if you are married, I mean, it's like being on a diet. If you're married, it's much more difficult to stay faithful, but it's much more interesting. And, you know, if you're on a diet and you see this fantastic chocolate cake somewhere and you think, I'm just going to go in the kitchen and have a taste of that. And you know what's going to happen. You're going to eat the whole thing.
Well, you know, it's funny because the other word I wrote down was responsibility. And I want to, because the characters, they don't seem to take responsibility, so many of them. Alex, the director, and the childish Billy actor,
Yes.
he says, I'm late on the set, he says to Alex. It's not my fault. And you can see Alex going, well, whose fault is it?
Exactly.
They don't take responsibility, a lot of these people.
Well, that is what's going on in Hollywood today. You know, when you see all these young kids and they're out there and they're driving and they've been drinking, or they're running in the sea in their underclothes, or they're getting out of cars without underwear on, they don't take responsibility for that. It's always somebody else's fault. It's the paparazzi's fault for chasing them. It's their mother's fault for not treating them right, you know? So I think that when I wrote the character of Max in Drop Dead Beautiful, it was so interesting to get into her relationship with her mother, because when you're 16, you don't take responsibility. You see yourself as knowing everything, and you see your mother and your parents as knowing nothing. And then as you get older, your parents get wiser.
You know, she even has a really weak moral flaw when, and again, I'll be careful of how we talk about this, but
Yes.
something happens to her,
Yeah.
and she doesn't do the right thing after it's even taken care of, because she's more concerned with herself, again, rather than maybe harming somebody else.
Yes, this is true. It was interesting to write Lucky and Lucky's daughter, because Lucky was such a wild one herself when she was 16. She was so wild, in fact, that her father, Gino Santangelo, had to marry her off to a politician's son as a favor. So Lucky, in a previous book, was married off at 16, and then she had to kind of fight to get back the strength that she wanted to have, because her brother was killed, as I said before, and her brother was gay, and she said he didn't want to go into the business, the family business, which was building hotels in Las Vegas. And you know, Gino came from a background of bootlegging and prohibition and all of that. And she went to her father and said, I want to follow in the family business. And he said, absolutely not. He quickly married her off. But then he had to leave the country on a tax exile, and she moved in and took in everything. She took over everything because she's a strong woman. I love writing strong women, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was a kid, growing up, I used to read Harold Robbins and Mickey Spillane, and the women were great, but they were in the kitchen or the bedroom, sex or cooking. And I said to myself, when I write women, they're going to do everything.
Well, then let me ask you about Lucky in particular, because you just said Max and Lucky. And I couldn't help, though, that although both are wild and rambunctious as a youth,
Yes.
I have to ask you this. Was Lucky, though, irresponsible? Because she right now seems to be the mecca of responsibility. She really, in fact, almost to the detriment of her own family sometimes, is so responsible for things going on around her. Was she, as a young person, in your mind, irresponsible? Because Max really is.
You know what? Lucky was always incredibly street smart.
Okay, that's what I got a
Yes.
sense of that. And Max,
Yes.
I didn't get a sense of
No,
that.
she's not street smart because she's been brought up in Bel Air and Malibu, and she's more of a Hollywood kid. But she's going to learn. She's like a little Lucky who hasn't quite learned the lessons that Lucky learned at a very early age. Because Lucky, you know, her mother was murdered when she was 4. She discovered her floating in the family swimming pool. And I made a mini-series of that, NBC television, which I wrote and produced. And Lucky was played by Nicolette Sheridan. And her mother, who was murdered when she's 4, was played by Sandra Bullock. So it was interesting casting.
Oh, because of the time frame. You're right. I was going to say, how could that be? But
yeah,
you're right.
exactly,
because
she was 4. But on my website, JackieCollins.com, if you click onto Lucky Chances onto movies, you'll find all the stills of Sandra and Nicolette and Vincent Irizarry, who played Gino. It was so much fun to do. It was so much fun to bring them to life.
You know, let me have the opportunity to give your website again, because we'll put it up on the screen so
Okay,
people
great.
can do it. And it's www.JackieCollins.com. So it's www.yourname.com.
Exactly.
I know for a fact, because when you sell 500 million books, you're not going to be able to respond to people, but they will get a chance to.
But you know, I do respond. I love the fact that I can communicate with my readers on my website. What I do is
really?
I have a section where they can ask questions, and once a month I sit down and I answer the questions and I post my answers. I also send them autographed pictures. It's great to have this dialogue. And they say to me, oh, just read Lovers and Players, read Thrill, loved it, but when is Lucky coming back? And that's one of the reasons I brought her back.
Well, this is then, for all those who have been following, then this is going to be a wonderful return of Lucky,
Well,
that's
I
for
think
sure.
so, because
yeah.
she's older and wiser, and I love her in this book. You know, my editor said to me, don't you think she and Lenny are a little too happy together? And I said, are you kidding?
In fact, that's the best part of the book.
I know, I love that.
I do
love the
too.
fact that they're happy.
I think that was the
Yes.
best part of the book,
And
their
of course,
relationship.
she has the dangerous temptation of Alex.
Well, you know what? I can't imagine it really tempting her. It more tempts Alex, in my
It does,
opinion. I don't.
yes.
She's too. You know, Lenny doesn't feel it even. You can tell he's secure enough that she's in love with who she's in love with. Alex, in fact, is a bit of a dork. I'm sorry, I don't like to say that because I never know. Could that be based on your husband or
No,
something?
it's
I
not
don't
based on
know.
my
I know.
husband. He's
I know.
definitely based on somebody in
I c-
Hollywood.
oh, he is, though?
Yes,
Okay,
he keeps
because-
on complaining to me.
Well-
Hi, Alex, he says. No.
I could tell you don't want to
Yeah.
be Alex.
No.
I want to go back, as I said, to some of the psychological and sociological underpinnings.
Okay.
One of the key here is, he's not a main character, but he's an influential character named Henry. And in the very beginning, you tell us, by the way, that Henry has no drive and no ambition. We know that from the very
Yes.
beginning. But the real problem that he personifies is a problem that we are dealing with in our own society. And I thought I would have you discuss this,
Okay.
and that is victimhood. He is the ultimate victim. He blames, and by the way, we're talking about a victim who's come from awesome wealth and privilege. So this
Yes.
makes it a very interesting twist. We think of victims oftentimes as impoverished, homeless, parentless, whatever you
Yeah.
might say. This is just the opposite. But yet he feels like a victim. They say most of the terrorists are feeling this victimhood, which is how come they express themselves that way. I couldn't help but get a sense that you too were relating to us how being a victim is one of the most dangerous things in society.
Absolutely. I mean, he, comes from this very rich family in Pasadena, but they basically ignore him as he's growing up, and he wants to be an actor, and he's not a particularly good-looking guy. He doesn't have much talent. He's kind of like, just colorless in a way. And, when he goes to his parents and he says, I want to be an actor, they go, don't be ridiculous. You're going into your father's business. You're going to be, you're going to inherit millions and millions, so you don't have to do anything. But he wants to, so he makes an attempt at being an actor. And he goes to this audition, and Lucky is producing this movie with Alex. This is from a previous book. But he remembers it. He remembers the fact that she turned to somebody and said, no, he's not right for the part. And he never got the role. And he's been brooding about that for years. And then he's kind of a computer geek. He comes across a site and he recognizes this girl and he realizes it's Max, Lucky Santangelo's daughter. And then he starts to pursue her in a very bad way indeed.
Well, this is where the mystery then all turns in and how it all plays out. But I want to go with this because, in fact, what makes Max succumb to this is another line you give us that I also think is a sociological problem I want to discuss. It's by Bridget, who is always choosing the wrong men.
Always.
And this Max, by choosing the wrong man, is going to make some sort of a real bad mistake occur in regards to Henry. What is up with this choosing the wrong man? Because you see that here, and if you're laughing, but it's not uncommon.
It's not uncommon because, if you have a girlfriend and she's single and you say to her, I got this great guy I want you to meet. He loves his mother, he cooks, he's fantastic, he's got a great job, he's handsome, he's really nice. And then you say, but there's this other guy. He's a little edgy. I think he's a bit of a bad boy. Which one do you want to go out with? Which one do you think that woman is going to choose?
See, now, my wife and I discuss this all the time.
Really?
Because
yes.
I'm going to give you my inside line. I always say, I'm as bad as a boy can be that your mom still would like, okay? Because the truth of the matter is,
I like that, yes.
The truth is, you're right, it is that bad boy. It's the bad boy that people are attracted to. I have Bruce Dern is coming on, and I think one of the reasons, and he plays the bad guy
he
oftentimes.
Always plays the bad boy.
And one of the things is there is this never knowing what's going to happen with this. So that's it, isn't it?
Exactly. There's that kind of edge of danger. And then Max, who goes off to meet who she thinks is a 22-year-old guy, and gets stuck in Big Bear with this. Well, I'm not going to say what it is because I want people to read the book, but she gets stuck with something really bad. But along the way, she meets Ace, who is another bad boy, but he's kind of a good boy, too.
In fact, he is, I'm going to put it this way. I don't think you'll disagree. He's really the only real character that everyone is going to be able to relate to because he's, and we all could relate to these other characters,
yes, I know
but
what you're saying.
You do know, right?
Yeah.
Ace is the real kid. You can sense that, in fact, when he looks at all of this, he goes, man, you people are all so bizarre out there. But he's a real working class kid.
Yeah.
He's also orphaned to some extent, but he's got his brother who's a fireman and takes care of him.
Yeah.
But he's the real hero.
He is, and women are absolutely loving Ace. They're saying to me, oh, I love that guy. I say to people, I was in Las Vegas launching the book, and you see America in Las Vegas. America is there. From every little town across America, they come to Vegas, this glamorous city. And I was signing books for 1,000 people, and I was saying to a lot of them, because they've been in the line for so long, that they've been reading the book. And I say, who's your favorite character? And I expected them to say, oh, Venus or Antony or whatever. And they all say Lucky first. And then the second favorite character was Ace. And the third favorite character was Max.
I would have put him in that order.
Interesting.
I would have put him in the exact same order.
Yes.
The exact same order. Although, something, I got to tell you, because of my own relationship, I loved Lenny.
Yeah, I love Lenny.
Okay.
But he's not a big part of the book.
No, he's not.
He's there.
Right.
He's had a very interesting past in previous books. He was a stand-up comedian in Vegas. His mother was a stripper, Alice the Swivel. His father was a comedian. from a comedian. He kind of did the Chevy Chase route. He became a movie star. He got fed up with that. He decided he was going to be a writer, producer, director. I tried to kill him off in 2 books. He wouldn't go. I wanted to give Lucky some freedom. He would not go. My daughter said to me, "Don't you dare kill Lenny off." And the guy who portrayed him, the actor who portrayed him in the miniseries, said, "Don't you dare kill Lenny off." And all my fans say to me, "Don't kill Lenny, you can't." And I can't even kill Gino. He's 95 years old in this book.
Well, he plays a big role, and I'm going to bring him up in a bit as we actually more towards the end of this conversation. But there's a reason, because he's 94, and you just met Kirk Douglas. I mean, you knew Kirk from before, but you met him. And his book, there is a wisdom that comes with age.
Yeah.
And no matter how bad or roguish Gino was when he was young, and you can tell it was probably pretty nasty.
Gino the Ram was his nickname.
Gino the Ram. The name itself, you can just see what that is. But he's now seasoned. If anything, he's the voice of wisdom.
He is. And so is Kirk Douglas. I love that man. He's fantastic. I mean, we all know that he was like the original womanizer. And now, you know, he's settled into his life. He loves his life now.
It's the same with Gino.
Yeah, exactly.
It's exactly the same. He's so in love with his wife now.
Yes.
That was again a very revealing element, because so many of the other loves, in fact, I'll use it, you know, here's your words. Love was a pain in the ass. Love made you weak and vulnerable and open to getting hurt. And again, I wanted to say, why do we have so many people who feel that way when you do see a Gino, you see a Lucky and a Lenny, you do see how beautiful real love can be? Why do, again, men and women keep falling into this trap of falling for people that they can't share this love?
Because most people have had their heart broken. And then after they've had their heart broken once, maybe twice, it's very difficult for them to commit to a relationship.
Boy, you know, that really, it's a sad thing too, because you have, and you know what? People don't realize that's what causes the victimhood.
Of course.
You see, it's like a vicious cycle. So their children then feel victimized, they feel victimized, and it hurts society. Here's one for you I couldn't help but it's Anthony's wife.
Irma.
This is a very arresting character, I think. I think she's interesting
like
because
Irma
she's
a
also
lot.
in the background. She's not moving the story forward. I mean, she does play roles in it, but you know what I'm saying? She's in the background. And these were the words: "My life is seeping away, and I am kept here like a caged animal." And I thought again, this ultimate metaphor for these kept women, these kept children, they're really imprisoned almost in their own protective cocoons.
I see it all the time. I see the very, very older rich man with the young trophy wife. And the trophy wife puts on, you know, a big show. And then sometimes he'll say something to her in front of people that is so disgusting and so bad. And you see her, the mind goes, well, I'm married to him, I've got to put up with him, and he's got all this money, and we don't have a prenup, and I'm going to stick it out until he drops. It's kind of, it's sad.
Well, you know, you give us this line, Jackie, and I think I can't help but this thing, as I was reading it, kept running through my mind as I was reading it, and it says, sometimes everything wasn't enough.
Yes.
And it feels that not all the characters, but so many of them are suffering from that.
I suppose it's what I've observed in life. You know, we all write about what we know and the lifestyles we know. I mean, I write about all ages, all sizes, all sexual orientation, all colors, because that's the life that I've lived. And I'm not one of those writers who writes about my own particular, you know, life. I like to write everything. I like to write the great rags to riches story. I like to write somebody who has nothing and gets everything. I'm a school dropout. I dropped out of school at 15. Actually, I was expelled, but dropout sounds better.
I don't know. They talk about bad girls, you know, expelled sounds better.
You see, yes. So I was very street smart myself, and I came to Hollywood first when I was 15, and I learned a lot. And
By the way, I have to say, I did see a little Lucky in you. I won't go any further than that. Just a little bit,
just
all right?
A little bit,
just
yes,
a little bit.
Yes. Lucky is the kind of woman that a lot of women would like to be. and she says the things they would like to say and does the things they would like to do. And that's why she's almost like a James Bond for women, because women love to read this kind of a character. And I love to create this kind of character because she has real strength.
Well, I love the fact that you created that character and you shared her with us today.
Thank you
Jackie.
so much.
Oh, thank you, Jackie.
This was so much fun. I loved it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for joining us. Now, before Jackie Collins leaves, I'd like to leave you with these words. They are from Drop Dead Beautiful, and as I said before, they had something to do with Gino. These were spoken by Gino. He's Lucky's
Father.
94-year-old
Father.
father. And this is what he says. I got grandchildren, a wife I love, and loyal friends. I got it all. If I died tomorrow, I'd be a happy man. I'm Barry Kibrick. If you have love and friends, you have got it all, and you don't need to read between those lines. Thank you, Jackie, so much.
Thank you, Barry. That was really interesting.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Closed captioning for Between the Lines with Barry Kibrick is made possible by your generous contributions to KLCS Education Foundation. Thank you for your support. Please visit us at klcs.org/BTL if you would like to contact Barry or watch an episode of our show online. And go to barrykibrickblogs.com to go further between the lines and read Barry's posts.